I grew up in a house where attention worked like a spotlight. It only focused on one person at a time, and that person was never me. My younger sister, Olivia, was everything my parents wanted. Confident, outgoing, always praised, and I was quiet, careful. The one who learned early that speaking less meant fewer problems. I didn't react when my mother called my daughter a mistake. I didn't respond when my sister laughed and said I had nothing to offer. I didn't say a word when the entire room went silent, watching me like I deserved it. Because sometimes, the strongest response isn't what you say in the moment, it's what happens next. What no one expected was that my daughter was listening to everything. And when she stood up and quietly walked away from the table, that's when everything started to change. Because what she did next wasn't loud, wasn't dramatic, but it made everyone in that room see things they had been ignoring. Before I tell you what she said, my name is Rachel Morgan. I'm 32 years old, and this happened last year in Austin, Texas. Before we continue, if you enjoy emotional stories where quiet moments turn into powerful endings, consider subscribing. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. I read every single comment. Now let me take you back to that night. Because what happened didn't start at the stage. It started long before that party. By the time I was a teenager, my role in the family was already decided. Olivia was the successful one. I was the difficult one. Not because I caused trouble, but because I didn't fit their expectations. If I questioned something, I was ungrateful. If I stayed quiet, I was distant. There was no version of me that felt right to them. At 19, I moved out. Not dramatically. No big fight, just a quiet decision. I found a small apartment, worked 2 jobs, and slowly built a life that didn't depend on anyone's approval. For the first time, I felt something I hadn't felt growing up. Peace. 3 years later, my daughter Lily was born. Her father left before she turned 1. No explanation, no support, just absence. And suddenly, I was alone again. But this time, it felt different. Because I wasn't alone for myself. I had her. Raising Lily wasn't easy. There were nights I barely slept. Days I worked double shifts. Moments where everything felt overwhelming. But through all of it, I never once saw her as a burden. She was the reason I kept going. The reason I refused to give up. After years of distance, I slowly started reconnecting with my family, mostly for Lily. I thought, maybe things would be different now. Maybe time had changed something. Maybe they would see me differently. I was wrong. At first, it was small things. Comments disguised as concern. You must be struggling. Single parenting is hard. Maybe you should have made different choices. They never said anything directly cruel, but the meaning was always there. Every conversation somehow led back to Olivia. Her career, her lifestyle, her achievements. She's doing so well. We're so proud of her. And then silence, because there was never a follow-up about me. A few weeks later, my mother invited me to a family party, a large gathering, relatives, friends. Everyone would be there. Bring Lily, she said. We should spend more time together. For a moment, I believed her. The night of the party, I walked into the house holding Lily's hand. The room was full. Laughter, music, voices overlapping. People turned to look at us. Some smiled politely. Others just observed. And then I saw my mother, standing near the center of the room, already watching me, like she had been waiting. My mother walked toward me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Rachel," she said, hugging me lightly. Then she looked down at Lily. "And this must be her. Not your daughter. Not even her name. Just her." Lily held my hand a little tighter. I smiled politely, because I had learned something over the years. In rooms like this, you don't react too early. My mother began introducing us to relatives. "This is Rachel," she said. A small pause. Then she added, "She's had a different path." People nodded. Some gave sympathetic smiles. Others looked at Lily with quiet curiosity. And just like that, the tone of the evening was already set. Then Olivia walked in, confident as always, dressed perfectly. The room shifted toward her instantly. "Olivia," my mother said, her voice suddenly brighter. She hugged her tightly. And just like that, the spotlight moved. Exactly where it always did. Within minutes, the comparison started. "Olivia just got promoted. She's doing amazing. We're so proud of her." And then someone looked at me. "So Rachel, what are you doing these days?" I smiled slightly. "I work in project coordination." A simple answer, but the reaction was underwhelming. Dinner was announced shortly after. Everyone gathered around a large table. I sat beside Lily, across from my mother, next to Olivia. Conversations filled the room, but slowly, the attention shifted again, back toward me. My mother picked up her glass, then looked at me. "You know," she said casually, "Rachel always struggled with responsibility." The room grew quieter. "It's just who she is." A few people chuckled lightly, like it was harmless. But I felt Lily's hand tighten again. Then my mother said it. Calm, clear, loud enough for everyone to hear. She made choices that complicated her life. Her eyes moved toward Lily briefly. And now she has to live with them. No one laughed this time, but no one stopped her either. Olivia leaned back in her chair, smiling slightly. "She just never planned things properly," she added. "I mean, you can't expect success without structure." Then she looked at me. Not angry, not emotional, just certain. And honestly, she doesn't really have much to offer. The room went completely quiet. No one interrupted. No one defended me. Some people looked down at their plates. Others pretended not to hear. And in that moment, I realized something important. They didn't agree with her. But they weren't going to challenge her either. If you've ever been in a situation where people stayed silent when you needed them the most, you understand how heavy that moment feels. And if you're still here with this story, thank you. Tell me in the comments. Have you ever had to sit quietly while someone judged you unfairly? I read every single comment. Now let me tell you what happened next. Because this wasn't the worst part. I didn't respond. Not to my mother. Not to Olivia. Not to anyone. I simply sat there, holding Lily's hand. Because I knew something they didn't. Sometimes, you don't need to defend yourself. Because the truth finds its own way to the surface. And a few seconds later, Lily slowly let go of my hand, stood up, and started walking away from the table. If you've ever been in a room where people stayed silent when you needed them the most, you know exactly how that feels. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever experienced something like this? I didn't notice it at first. I was still sitting there, trying to process what had just been said. My mother's voice, my sister's words, and that silence in the room. That felt like agreement. Lily had been holding my hand tightly, but then, slowly, she let go. I looked down at her. She wasn't confused. She wasn't upset. She was thinking. And before I could say anything, she stood up. She didn't rush. She didn't react. She didn't look at anyone, not at my mother, not at Olivia. She just stepped away from the table, calm, steady. For a moment I thought about stopping her, but something felt different. This wasn't random. It wasn't a reaction. It felt like a decision. and no one in the room noticed. At first, no one paid attention. People kept talking, eating, moving on like nothing had happened. Because when something uncomfortable happens, people ignore it. But I noticed, because I always do. And the way she was walking wasn't careless. It wasn't distraction. She knew exactly what she was doing. And for the first time, I realized this moment wasn't over yet. She walked toward the corner of the room, not toward me, not toward the door, but toward a small table no one was paying attention to. It was just sitting there, holding random things people had left behind. Napkins, a pen, a few unused papers. She stopped there, and for a second, she just stood still, like she had already decided what to do next. Then she reached for the pen, picked it up without hesitation, and grabbed one of the papers. Her movements were simple, natural, but focused. Like this wasn't new to her, like she wasn't unsure. And that's when something shifted. Because now, it didn't look like a child wandering. It looked like someone preparing. She lowered her head and started writing. Slowly, carefully. Not rushing, not distracted. Every word, deliberate. And in that moment, the room around her faded for me. I wasn't hearing conversations anymore. I wasn't thinking about what had just happened. I was just watching her, trying to understand what she was about to say without speaking. A few people started noticing. At first, just quick glances, then longer looks. Because there was something unusual about it. She wasn't playing. She wasn't asking for attention. She was quiet, focused, and calm. And somehow, that drew more attention than noise ever could. After a few seconds, she stopped writing, looked down at the paper, then turned around, holding it in both hands. She didn't look at me. She didn't look unsure. She just started walking back. But not toward her seat. Not toward safety. Toward something else. She walked straight toward my mother, step by step, calm, steady. And now, people were watching. Conversation slowed, voices lowered, because something about this moment felt different. No one knew what she was doing, but everyone could feel it mattered. She stopped right in front of her, looked up, and held out the paper. Small hands. Steady. "Can you read this?" Her voice was quiet, but clear. And just like that, the entire room shifted. Because now, everyone was paying attention. My mother looked at the paper, then at Lily. Her expression shifted slightly. Not anger, not understanding either, just confusion. Like she wasn't expecting this moment at all. For a few seconds, she didn't react. And the room stayed quiet. Not because anyone asked for silence, but because something about this felt different. Everyone was watching now, waiting to see what she would do next. She slowly unfolded the paper. Her fingers weren't as steady as before. Then her eyes moved across the first line. And I saw it. That small change. The kind you only notice when you've spent your whole life watching someone. She wasn't in control anymore. Not completely. She kept reading. But now, it felt like the words were controlling her. Her expression changed. Not all at once, but slowly, layer by layer. The confidence she had earlier started fading. Her eyes moved more carefully now. Like every word mattered more than she expected. Like she couldn't dismiss it as easily. And for the first time that night, she didn't look certain. She looked affected. "What does it say?" Olivia leaned forward. Her voice carried impatience. She wasn't used to not knowing, or not being in control. My mother didn't respond, so Olivia reached over and took the paper from her hands. That alone was unusual, because Olivia never interrupted her. But this moment was already different. Olivia looked down at the paper and started reading. My mom works every day. Her tone was neutral at first, still controlled, still distant. She takes care of me. She never gives up. Her voice slowed slightly, not by choice, but because something in those words made it harder to rush through them. Then she read the last part. If that makes her a mistake, then I hope I grow up to be one too. No hesitation this time, no sarcasm, just quiet. And when she finished, she didn't look up immediately, because even she knew that line couldn't be brushed off. No one spoke. But this silence felt different. Before, it protected them. Now, it exposed them. There was no laughter, no side comments, no one trying to fix the moment, because no one knew how. And suddenly, the room didn't feel as comfortable anymore. People started looking away, at their plates, at their phones, at anything that didn't require eye contact. Because now, looking at me meant acknowledging something, and that was harder than staying quiet. The same silence that ignored me before was now protecting them. Olivia didn't speak. My mother didn't either. And that was new. Because they always had something to say, always had a response, a correction, a judgment. But not this time. Because this time, there was nothing they could say that wouldn't make things worse. Lily turned around quietly, like she had already said everything she needed to say. She walked back to me. No rush, no hesitation. And when she reached me, she took my hand again, the same way she had before. But this time, the room was looking at us differently. I stood up slowly, not in anger, not to react, just to exist in that moment. Every eye in the room followed, but this time, it felt different. Before, they were watching to judge. Now, they were watching to understand. And for the first time, I didn't feel small standing there. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't overwhelmed. I wasn't trying to prove anything. Because I didn't need to anymore. Everything that needed to be said had already been said. And it hadn't come from me. That's what made it powerful. I looked at my mother, then at Olivia, and I realized something simple. Their words didn't define me anymore. She learned that from watching me. That's all I said. No speech, no explanation, no defense, just one sentence. Calm, clear, and enough. Because it wasn't about convincing them anymore. It was about acknowledging the truth. No one spoke after that. Not my mother, not Olivia, not anyone in that room. Because there was nothing left to argue, no angle to twist, no way to turn it around. And for once, they let the moment exist exactly as it was. My mother looked at me, really looked at me, not as a comparison, not as a disappointment, but as a person. And I think that's when it hit her. Not what I had become, but what she had refused to see. Olivia looked down at the table. The confidence she carried earlier was gone. Because this wasn't about success anymore, or status, or who did better in life. This was about something simpler and harder to ignore. Truth. I reached for Lily's hand, and this time, I didn't hesitate. We're going home, I said softly. No one stopped us. No one questioned it. Because the moment had already passed, and as I walked out, I didn't feel like I was leaving something behind. I felt like I was taking something back. The car was quiet, not heavy, not uncomfortable, just calm. Lily looked out the window, like nothing unusual had happened, like she hadn't just changed everything, And I realized something. For her, it wasn't a big moment. It was just honesty. Was that bad? She asked it so simply, like she wasn't sure if she had done something wrong. I looked at her and smiled. For the first time that night, without holding anything back. No, I said. That was the best thing anyone has ever said about me. And I meant it, because for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had something to prove. I wasn't a burden. I wasn't a mistake. I was just someone who had been seen clearly. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change everything. If this story meant something to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And I want to ask you something. Have you ever stayed silent until someone else spoke the truth for you? Type yes or no in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, check the next video on your screen. I'll see you there.